recording. Let's see. All right, recording, screen sharing. I assume it's working for everyone. Else, hopefully someone would have said something. So I will get started. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending. The goal of this session is to discuss a little bit about the summer research program that happens here in the summer for SMC. So this is a 10-week program that is application-based, where you get the opportunity to work with a faculty member in the School of Science as part of a kind of mentorship and in kind of well-programmed research experience. So the action plan here is going to be that we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of broadly what is the purpose of SRP and what SRP hopes to accomplish. I'll then give you an overview of the calendar of events, the expectations, and the benefits of what you get by doing SRP, the eligibility requirements of what it means to be able to be successfully admitted to the program and who is not eligible and who is, and then give an overview of the application process and a sense of what the deadlines are. And don't worry, there's no deadlines until the spring semester, though there are some things that will go on in January. And at that point, I think I will have covered essentially everything. And we can stop it there. And anything that has raised questions or anything that I didn't talk about that you want to ask about, we can do that then. All right, so summer research program. So why do it? Again, the goal here is that you get to participate and explore and conduct real research under the guidance of a member of someone that is a member of the faculty here at St. Mary's. So this is different than just participating in a lab, which you've all done in your STEM courses, right? In a lab, you're kind of usually reproducing things we already know the answer. Where in a research experience, the thing that makes research so exciting to many of us is that you are truly exploring the unknown. The data sets that you will come up with or create will be data sets that are unique to you. No one else in the world will have, the data that you have. And if this knowledge, in this experience ultimately ends up becoming, a published paper or a poster that you take to a conference, then through this experience, you will have taken kind of the sphere of knowledge and expanded its radius, ever so slightly, but nonetheless, you would have expanded that radius. So the idea of doing research, I think most of us faculty, the thing that gets us so excited about research is that you really are truly exploring the unknown. You get the opportunity to explore something and become an expert in something, which not only is kind of thrilling and exciting in itself, but also is a testament to your abilities and shows, I think a lot of students walk away from the program really better appreciating just what they are capable of. That over the course of a 10-week summer period, plus some stuff that happens in the fall, they really do go from complete novice to someone who could really hold their own if they were at a conference, full of chemists or full of whatever your field is. And so what the goals of this program is, or what we're trying to do, is that we're trying to train and help you get an experience that will help train you to become independent researchers. It's all well and good if you end up kind of going into a program after St. Mary's where you're kind of a lab assistant. Lab assistants are more just kind of following instructions, right? They have a great knowledge base that they can apply to other people's projects. But really, what we would like is the opportunity to train you to be your own independent researcher, so that maybe if you end up going to grad school or going into industry, that those skills will allow you to be the PI or the one who is leading the group rather than just someone who is taking orders. So through the summer research experience, you really do get a chance to be part of the entire scientific process, start to finish, where it might be that the projects already have been kind of developed, where the faculty members will have kind of particular projects in mind, usually something that is tied to their own interests and their own research. For example, students who work with me will inevitably work on something related to computational astrophysics, because that's what I study. But they might have interests in particular things, or I might be kind of interested in, some whim that week. And so what the actual project might be, right, has some flexibility. And it might be the case, this is usually very common in psychology, where you might propose your own project. So you are the one that comes up with the project, even in its developmental stage. And then a faculty member kind of is there to help mentor and make sure that everything kind of stays on track and help you through any kind of bumps in the road that you uh, experience. So beyond the development of the project, then you get to also participate in the implementation of the method. Whatever you're kind of doing to collect the data, to analyze the data, to verify your results, and ultimately the dissemination of your ideas. You get to play an active role in all of this. Again, we want to make you kind of experience start to finish what it is like to do scientific research. And this requires, skills that, of course, you all have been using your entire time at St. Mary's. Research is about communication. It's about determination. Then it's also involves some things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think to associate with science, right? Research is creativity. Research, of course, is problem solving. Research is independence. Having the gumption or the wherewithal to kind of take something and run with it, or being able to, once presented with an issue, to not just throw your hands up and give up. Though sometimes you feel like doing that. Sometimes I do that. But then, once you get over yourself, to actually go back and figure out what's going wrong, and figure out kind of what needs to happen for the project to continue moving forward. This is in a sort of experience that is becoming, I don't want to say necessarily crucial, but it is becoming definitely more and more important to demonstrate that you have participated in if you want to, say, go to grad school, or go into some sort of research intense experience. Usually they want to see that you have some exposure, not necessarily that you have papers. Obviously, if you can publish something as an undergrad, that's great. But don't beat yourself up if most projects do not result in papers. But what they want, what grad schools want to see, for example, is they want to see that you've had some exposure to what this environment is like and that you still want to do it. Because grad school, and this is a whole nother talk, grad school is very, very different than undergrad in many ways, that being one of them. So we hope to give you the experience that will allow you to really appreciate kind of what this would entail if you were to continue on in academia, and as well give you the experience and really kind of grow as an individual through doing something like summer research, because it really is quite unlike any lab that you would do in a lab section, and it's definitely way different than a problem set, or different than a homework. Homework is nice because usually in the back of the book there's at least half the answers. Research, right? You don't know the answer, and you don't know whether or not your answer is the right answer. So that can make it both very challenging, but also very rewarding when you realize what you are able to do. So this is also the sort of experience where you end up working very, very closely with a mentor. So School of Science faculty, so this is limited to members of the School of Science. School of Science faculty I will start kind of nudging them to share with me their interest to participate in the summer research program. And I will get over the next month or so faculty from all disciplines who have projects in mind or are willing to take on projects that students have come up with on their own. And you will then be, in your application process, you will kind of give me some preferences in terms of who you think would be a good fit for kind of what you're interested in, the kind of preparation you have. If you're a chem major and you've taken a lot of chem courses, then you're probably well suited to work with a chem faculty member, versus say physics. So there's also a pairing process where we will try to pair you kind of with a faculty member that you think is going to be the best fit. And then the faculty members will also get a chance to kind of meet with you one-on-one, and they'll also give me their kind of opinions on who they think is going to be the best fit. And from there, mentorship pairings will be made. And it often is the case that it's kind of one student to one faculty member, but then there's often cases where there will be there'll be groups. Professor Shu, I know, is one professor that usually has a little group where she will take 2 or 3 students over the summer. Uh, and I think the group environments are great because it's not just you and the professor, um, which is great for the individualized attention, but you also have your peers to hang out with and toss ideas around when, say, the professor is not there. So from this mentorship, what we want you to gain from this is that not only do you gain the experience of doing summer research, but you gain the professional development skills that come along with it. So as part of the summer research program, you aren't just siloed into your individual little research rooms and only interact with your faculty members. But as part of the summer research program, you will also participate in Professional Development Wednesdays, where every Wednesday the entire SRP program will meet, and usually led by me, sometimes by other faculty members. Every week we will have some sort of theme that will build on professional development. So to give some examples, last year the theme was science communication. And I imagine it's probably going to be the same theme this year as well. And so the idea being there that, science, as great as it is meaningless if no one gives a shit. So not only do we have to do the research, but we have to disseminate our ideas in a way that is approachable, in a way that also kind of conveys what we want to convey, that this is exciting, relevant, and necessary. And how that looks is very different if it's you making a table for a poster, or you making a plot, or you talking to a non-scientist, that you are, hanging out with over the holidays versus you talking with colleagues at a conference. So practicing these different forms of science communication is kind of one of the big themes of what we will do with these professional development Wednesdays. Thinking about what it means to communicate science, what is the elevator pitch of your project? And then this also will tie into other forms of communication, like learning how to make a poster, how to give a talk. You'll give several talks over this program. You'll get practice, giving. I think what we did was kind of 2 5-minute talks over the summer, and then a 3-minute talk over the I guess a 3-minute talk, in the early fall, and then they had to give essentially a 1-minute talk during the poster session. So what a good talk looks like, obviously, when it's 1 minute versus 5 minutes, it's very different and takes different kinds of preparation. But you'll get lots of practice kind of doing that through the summer. And then we usually will have other kind of thematic things that relate, like we'll talk about kind of ethics in science was a module we were hoping to do last year, but might try to do this year. We'll be learning how to give good feedback, as well as kind of developing some of our other kind of professional development skills, like writing a resume or writing a CV. What the hell is the difference? These are all things that are covered as well, just to give you, a peppering of examples. So let's see, I think I've covered everything more or less on the slide. So when does this all happen? The bulk of it takes place over the summer. So the summer research program, unsurprisingly, happens during a 10-week period, essentially the week after finals. So this is something to think about, and that doing this program means that you do have to commit to more or less giving up your summer. Because this 10-week program will start the week after finals, Wednesday, May 28th, it looks like this year. So that is the Wednesday after finals week. That is when the 10-week program begins. And then 10 weeks later, I think that should be Wednesday, August 6th, sorry, or whatever the Wednesday is of that week. But essentially go 10 weeks ahead in the calendar, and that Wednesday is when the summer research program will end. That is, and as you know, when classes start usually at the end of August, right? So you do get kind of August, still to yourself. But a good chunk of the summer is going to be taken up by the summer research program. And the way I would think about it, and I'll say more about this in another slide, is to think of this like a job, which also is a good way of thinking about grad school, right? Grad school, again, is not quite like undergrad, and that really you are hired as a grad student, right, to do a job. And that job usually involves, research in some meaningful way. So the way I would think about this is, right, this will be your summer internship, your summer job for this 10-week period, where it is expected that you're kind of working full time during those 10 weeks. And that might involve interacting directly with your mentors or kind of doing it digitally, like over Slack, or it might mean that there's some moments where you're kind of on your own, but you're kind of chiming in, every few days or so. So you'll have a lot of support, from me as the director, right? I will always be in your corner to make sure, everything's going well. But there is definitely going to be some new experiences that you experience doing the summer research program. But but students always get a lot out of this experience, even though it is a lot of work. But I think that's a good thing. So beyond the summer, let me give you a brief overview of kind of what is expected. So again, the bulk of it happens over the summer. The summer research program takes place Wednesday, May 28th to Wednesday-ish, August 6th. That date might be off by a day or two. But that 10-week program happens on campus over the summer. That is when you will do the bulk of your work. Most projects are able to reach some sort of, natural stopping point at that stage. Some keep going. I know a lot of projects in Brousseau might morph into an independent study for the fall, or might kind of continue on as something else, which is great. But there are still some summer research experience requirements that you have to meet in the fall as well. So it's not, once the summer program part ends, you're done. There are three big things that are kind of the culminations of what you did that summer. One of them will take place late September, early October-ish, which is when you will give another talk. So you'll be giving talks over the summer, but then you'll be giving kind of the what we call the lightning talks. So these are each student will get about 3 minutes to give to summarize their 10-week summer experience. It sounds impossible, but don't worry, it can be done. And this is made the invitation to attend these are made open to the public, i.e. campus. So friends and faculty can attend. Then around mid-October or so is when we will have kind of a mini conference here on campus. So as part of your projects that you'll be working on, like giving talks and whatnot, you will also craft a conference grade poster. Many of you will take literally that poster and go to conferences with it. But even if you don't, you still will get the experience of kind of creating a conference poster with your mentor. And so in mid-October or so, we will have, and I think it's whenever that like families weekend is every year. During that Saturday, we'll have kind of a mini conference for 2 or 3 hours where you will get the opportunity to kind of stand by your poster as you would if you were at a conference and kind of showcase your work to the general public. And then something that's kind of relatively new is that the summer research program really is only possible, because of the generous donations and benefactors that help support the summer research program. A lot of this is done through the School of Science Advisory Board that helps with SRP. These are people that often are alumni or are people who have gone and made monies with business and now have come back in some sort of advisory role to kind of guide the overall path of big programs like SRP. Many of them also donate or contribute financially to SRP. And so it is important to always, respectfully, thank and kind of interact with those who make this program possible. I actually think it is quite unique to St. Mary's that we can have this at all. At a small liberal arts college, to be able to offer you essentially the same thing that in a big R1 school like a Berkeley or a Harvard is able to offer. And we offer it only to St. Mary's students. So while it is a competitive program, you are only really competing against a small pool of students compared to where if you were to apply to one of these research experiences, at the Ohio State or Harvard or wherever, that you would be going up against not just, your local, colleagues, but every chem major in, the country or whatever. So I think it's quite impressive that we have the ability to do this. And my first year as director, kind of being behind the scenes, I also did not appreciate how much doing something like this costs. So lots of money, essentially uh, close to like $500,000 that goes into this program. So the fact that it is possible at all, it's good. When you get grants and when you get when you participate in research that's supported by someone or an agency financially, um, it's always good to give back to them because they are doing it because they're excited about science. They're excited to be able to kind of push you forward and to do this new work. So what we started doing last year, or this year rather, I guess, is that in November-ish or so, there'll be some, informal dinner with the advisory board where we had it in the I guess like well not the cafe, the bar this year where we just kind of took over a corner and had some tables and essentially a couple students and a couple advisory board members sat at a table and you just kind of schmoozed. Um, they loved it, and the students did not find it as painful as maybe they thought it would be. And one of the professional development Wednesdays we do is essentially, I think we titled it "How to Introduce Yourself at a Conference While Holding a Glass of Wine and a Cheese Plate and Not Look Like a Fool." So you'll also get some practice, kind of talking. How do you navigate these environments, which you will have to do in your professional life. Okay, so let's see. So in many ways, this experience, like I said earlier, does really mimic and model and represent kind of what grad school might feel like. So those who are kind of interested in in pursuing grad school, also, you can think of this as kind of a trial run, um, as terms of like how it might feel like if you were to continue on and do this for another 5+ years. That's an important thing to think about. With grad school, sometimes people go to grad school because they think they just haven't figured out what to do with their life. But in going to grad school, like that's a commitment. It's going to be, where you spend an appreciable chunk of your 20s. So don't do it if it's not going to be something that really is meaningful to you. And this is I think, a great opportunity to kind of get a feel for what that might be like. So, so let me go over, some kind of broad expectations. And then I think then the next thing is talking about a little bit about the application process. So the way that the summer program works is, again, it starts, that first day, that Wednesday, May 28th, is day one. And that it is expected like, oh, finals just ended. Can we just take next week off? Unfortunately, no, else everything starts to really, pile up against each other. So it really is something that kind of starts right away here on campus. And you are given on campus housing. So you are given a place to stay on campus. Usually you're kind of paired with another person in summer research. Or you could pay a little bit extra and get a single over the summer. So most of the students do that. If you live nearby and are comfortable just commuting, you can also do that. But it is expected that your job starts on May 28th at day one and goes through, unless it's been agreed upon between you and your mentor, that you will go to kind of that last day, that Wednesday, 10 weeks later. So again, I would think of this as a job, right? So in applying for the summer research program and in accepting, and you will sign a contract if you are admitted and ultimately say that you are going to do this, you will sign some sort of formal contract that says that you will agree not to take classes while doing this, not to hold other jobs. And the one that sometimes is an issue, not take lengthy family vacations during this time, right? This is not the sort of thing where we are going to be okay with you disappearing for a week. So if the parents are expecting that you're going to be available in July, for some trip to France, then you have to make a choice. It's either going to be summer research or this family vacation. Because again, it's unfair to the mentors if you kind of just, chime in and out whenever you feel like it. This also is kind of training you to kind of, take, that sometimes professional responsibilities get in the way of fun activities. And so it, and I guess very importantly, this is still a competitive program. Even though you are not competing against the entire nation, of undergrads, unfortunately, there are still more people that apply than we are able to offer spots for. So we want to make sure that the people we offer spots to are ones that are, 100% in. So in participating, right, you agree not to take classes, not to take other jobs, not to vanish for lengthy vacations. Does that mean you can't take a day trip on Saturday? Of course, take a day trip on Saturday. And of course, if you're going to miss a day during the week, make sure that your mentor is on board and okay with it. But don't disappear for a week. In addition, these professional development Wednesdays, for example, are not optional. So you will attend all of them, you will participate in all of them. If we have special events like speaker events, you will participate in those. There will be expectations that you will give, for example, 2 talks, right? And you will give both talks. There are usually some social events, which we do not, force you to be social, but we obviously do encourage you to participate in those events. And feedback from last year, students said that it would have been nice to have a little bit, more of those. So I'm hoping this year that I can plan maybe some casual social events as well. Because again, we don't want it to be isolating. Research can be very isolating, especially when you get really into the weeds of your project and you're the only one working on it. But so beyond just meeting every Wednesday, as a cohort, last year over the summer we had kind of a group trip to the Exploratorium. So the Exploratorium has these kind of Exploratorium at night or after hours or whatever it's called things that are for the Exploratorium, it's 18 plus. The California Academy of Science has an amazing one too, but it's 21 and over, so we can't do that one. But we'll probably do something like that. But then I also want to have like maybe just informal like barbecues or something like that we can just get together and hang out outside of the lab. So again, just to make it very clear, this all happens on campus, in person. There are no remote options. Even if most of your work can be done on a computer, like my research can, it really does. You really lose something if it's not kind of the in-person environment. So we do not offer remote options anymore. And thankfully, this has not had to be. We have not had to do this yet. But again, the expectation by you signing that contract is that if you fail to meet any of these expectations, we are free to dismiss you from the program. Which again, we've never had to do yet, and hopefully I never have to, but just so that you're aware. Okay. All right, but beyond just the amazing mentoring experience you'll get, there are other benefits as well. This is a job, so I think it's appropriate as a job that you get paid. So in participating in the summer research program, if you're admitted, you do get a paycheck. So for students, this is assuming it has not changed from last year, but these numbers have not changed in years. So you can probably bet on these numbers. So students participating will get $5,000, and this is paid in multiple installments. So on my notes, I have 1,000 in July, 2,500. Oh, sorry, 1,000 in June, and then 1,250 in July and August, and then a final 1,500 after the poster session in the fall. On the expectation that you have completed all the necessary things before that final check. And then faculty mentors also receive, pay for participating as well as research funds that you don't have to worry about, but there's funds that will help support your research. In addition, you are provided on-campus housing for free. Unless you want to have a single, then you have to pay a little bit extra. I think it was like in the order of like a couple hundred or something like that. But that might change with tuition and housing costs changing every year. So that's provided to you at no cost. but if you do live off campus and are local, and so therefore don't necessarily don't want to move on campus for this thing, we do give you a single time $500 additional check to help offset travel, rent costs, things like that, since everyone else is getting essentially a free rent experience. So we give a little bit to help the local commuters as well. The one thing I will point out, many of you are probably aware of this, during breaks, that sometimes Oliver is not open, or that there are no kind of dining hall options. I think the dining hall does still operate over the summer in some limited capacity, but this does not come with a meal plan. So I believe usually the students, for SRP, I don't exactly remember which dorm, but I think it's one of the dorms that have the kind of suites that have a kind of shared kitchen for every like 3 or 4 rooms or something like that. So you will have access to like a microwave and a stove, I believe. Um, but it will be kind of up to you, to grocery shop and do things like that. All right. So that's some of the benefits. And then So now let me talk a little bit about the eligibility, then what the application process looks like, and then we can take some questions. So for eligibility, this is the School of Science Summer Research Program. So it is limited to School of Science faculty that have research that they want to participate in. And again, you don't have to worry about that. I will be gauging interest and getting names of faculty that will be participating. But you have to eventually be registered for fall 2025 courses. So like you will not have registered for those courses yet when you submit the application in February, but we will make sure by the time the program starts, you have actually registered for courses. This again is essentially tied into the idea that you can't have graduated. So if you're graduating this May, then you have stopped being a St. Mary's student, and unfortunately, then you're not eligible for this program. So, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, assuming that you are not graduating in May and that you are in good standing with the university or with the college, you are eligible to apply. So it assumes that you've been and remain a full-time student in good standing, so no big outstanding bills or anything like that, and that you have declared a major in the School of Science. And that can be BA, BS, part of the dual degree programs. I don't think the certificates count. You have to have, some sort of major in the School of Science. So that includes I guess what's now called dual degree engineering, allied health science, biochem, biology, chem, earth and environmental science, math, computer science, physics, and astronomy, and psychology. So essentially all the departments in the School of Science, you have to have a major in one of those. We do not consider GPA during the application process. So I'll go over the application next. So there is no kind of GPA threshold. There's tons of literature that shows that GPA thresholds are actually quite biased and towards marginalized, against marginalized groups. And we aim to make this an equitable opportunity so that anyone, not just the extroverts that can talk to the faculty members on their own, or the people that get straight A's, have the opportunity to participate in this program. And I can tell you plenty of examples when I was a grad student of undergrads that they looked great on paper, but they just kind of floundered in the research environment. It's a quite different beast. And then other students that maybe got C's, just something about the research experience just made them shine. So we want to make sure that this is available to everyone. So it really amounts to, I think that's the next slide, I guess the timeline. Your application, right, is kind of the important part along with the letter of rec. So let me go over now the application timeline and kind of what it entails. So again, this info session is kind of giving you a sense of kind of what's coming down the pipe. So around January 10th, I will launch the application process. So if you don't do it now, but if you navigate to the School of Science Summer Research Program webpage, it will look something like this. If you scroll down to that kind of red block that has the summer research application process, that is where you should find all the relevant forms and application materials that you need to fill out. So I think this is showing what we had for last year. So you will see that it will have something like a tab for the faculty research interests. So this is where you'll be able to see kind of which School of Science faculty are participating in SRP, because the application will ask you to kind of list your top 5 or top 3 that you want to work with. Then there is the application form itself, where it'll ask you, boilerplate stuff, and then ask you kind of to respond to a few short essay type questions in terms of why you want to do SRP, what you benefit by doing SRP, or if you've already done SRP, why you would really benefit from doing it again. And you can do it multiple times, though the application process, we will say, gets harder every time. Because we want to make sure that we're giving it to the people that really do, need this as part of their professional growth. And then the other part of the application will be a letter of rec that traditionally should be done by a School of Science faculty member, but it does not have to be. But again, think about what the letter of rec is trying to do. This letter of rec is trying to support your application, saying yes, the student will succeed in a science research type environment. So usually, school science faculty are the ones that can really attest to that. But if you're, say, a transfer student, then it might be, just having a School of Science faculty member at another school write that is perfectly appropriate. Or if you really think that a non-school science faculty member is the one that can speak the best to your success in SRP, then you can of course do that. But my recommendation is to, if you're not a transfer student, to try to find a School of Science faculty member to do this. So this will be the web page that red box will update in July. Oh, sorry, not July, in January, with the new faculty research interests. I will start later. Well, I guess the week's already over. Next week, I will start trying to gauge interest from the faculty. And so by the time I launch the application and make it available to you, you will also be able to see which faculty members are participating. And I think I did a little screen grab to show you kind of what that looks like. So it will be some long document where it will list, faculty that can take on student design projects, individual faculty that can mentor students, along with their field. And you'll be able to kind of just roam around the document, see, okay, let's see what Professor Coyle is doing, kind of day-to-day activities, prerequisites, potential topics. What's this? He's not here anymore. What other faculty members are looking to do. So this will give you kind of an overview of the projects that are available, or the professors, like it had at the beginning, the faculty that can take on student design projects. It's not required, but you are strongly encouraged to reach out to these faculty members in advance of submitting your application to kind of test the waters and make sure that this seems like a feasible pairing. I would say this is especially true if you're planning on proposing your own project. If you have your own project in psychology, based on who is available that summer, right? Those faculty members are going to want to make sure that they have the expertise or what they think is necessary to mentor you effectively in that project. So if, the faculty members aren't necessarily experts in something you want to probe, that might, cause a little bit of hesitation. So best case is to just approach the faculty before you submit the application, and just have a nice quick professional chat. Professor O'Neill, I'm hoping to participate in the summer research program. I was really excited to see that you are going to mentor students this summer. I had a project about X that I was hoping to do, and I was wondering whether you think would be a good mentor-student pairing to work together, something like that. So this document, again, will be available with the applications once all of that is available. And will be on the School of Science Summer Research Program website. It will also have the application that you will fill out. And then it will also have the letter of rec form that you will give to the faculty member that is writing a letter of rec for you. So, and it's on you to kind of give it to the faculty member. Don't have them go searching for it. But thing to note about the entire application process is that we give you 5 weeks. So January 10th, I'm pretty sure it's a Friday, the application will launch. 5 weeks later, February 14th, is when the application is due. And that means both your application and the letter of rec, which should not be given back to you. The faculty member will submit that on their own. And the materials will say kind of what, where to email things and whatnot. But something to keep in mind, because often letters of rec are not due until much later. But for this, since we try to get the decisions made by March, we essentially need everything in by that February 14th date. And again, since it's competitive, we don't want to say no. Just give me a reason to say no. So when we say February 14th at 5 p.m., that means Miss Martha White stops accepting things at 5:01. So don't save it for the last minute, because then inevitably your Wi-Fi hiccups or something happens. Plan ahead, put it on your calendar, make sure things get done. To help support your application process, in mid to late January, though I guess I did this before the application even launched last year, but I'll probably do it mid to late January. I will host some sort of application workshop, usually at the STEM, last year I did at the STEM Center. So this will be a workshop that will kind of go over, the actual questions that are in the application and talk a little bit about kind of what it means to kind of, how to best answer these sorts of questions. When it says, why is SRP a meaningful experience to you, right? You could give me vague generalities, or you could give me concise, pithy, anecdotes that, show me why SRP really is necessary for you, for example. So during this thing, mid to late January, right, there'll be some sort of application workshop. And I will say, as the director, you should not hesitate to email me, with questions or stop by my office. So it's Galileo 103B and one of the kind of alleys, one of the faculty alleys. If my door is open, stop by. Worst case scenario, I'll tell you to go away, but not until we've figured out a time for you to come back, or email me. So then the application then is kind of submitted mid-February. At that point, they are anonymized and given to the department chairs, and kind of randomized within the department chairs. And they start assessing the kind of strengths of the applications. So, I don't make these calls, but the department chairs essentially rank the applications themselves, and they usually get the ones that are in their field plus a few outsiders. So they serve as kind of an outside member for one department, and then look at all, like if it's Professor Rosario, she will read all the physics applications, for example. So because she really is the one that knows best whether or not what they're proposing or whether the application is strong. So the idea is that, but everything's anonymized, so they will give me some sort of, ultimate rankings, which I will then kind of throw through my statistics machine. And after kind of conferring with the department chairs that they kind of agree with my conclusions, that will give me kind of the list of preliminary acceptances. And just to give you a sense of the numbers, I forget off the top of my head how many people applied last year, but last year we were able to admit 20 students into the program. So, and I imagine the number is going to be somewhere around that. So to give you a sense. So what happens in March is if you are given a preliminary acceptance, that means that you have not necessarily gotten in, but that you have essentially, you've meet the threshold for getting in. And at that point, we would have given you potential pairings with mentors. So it might be that I say, okay, you've been preliminarily accepted to SRP, with a possible mentee pairing with, Dr. Lee and with Dr. O'Neill. Then there'll be this kind of, unfortunately, this usually falls around Easter break, so we'll have to see what the timeline looks like. But after the preliminary acceptances are sent out and you have like 2 or 3 possible pairings, with faculty, you'll have 1 to 2 weeks to meet individually with those faculty to get a sense, they can kind of share what it would be like to work for them. You can get any questions answered about their projects. Then by the end of that kind of, meet and greet 2 week period, all the faculty and all the students will have shared with me their preferences in terms of which pairings they think make the most sense. And from there, I will do some sort of optimization magic to, ideally match everyone with their first choice. But we'll do my best to make sure that both faculty are given students when they want them, and that students are put into pairings that will be productive and fruitful and meaningful. So then that should happen probably around mid-March to kind of early April. At that point, I will then be able to share, a formal kind of acceptance. Congratulations, you have been accepted at SRP and you are prepared with Professor O'Neill, or whoever. So at that point, the faculty and the students will know kind of what the pairings are. And at this point, in the past, there has been kind of a little proposal that has been due where the students have to write up like a 1-pager, kind of summarizing what they intend to do over the summer. So kind of what the project is and what they intend to do. We have kind of relaxed this over the last year because I don't think this is super meaningful to every student that does SRP. So this will be something that will be at the discretion of your mentor. If they think it's important for you to do this now, and sometimes it is, like for example, psych, usually for psych, you all have to essentially get started right away because you have to do often IRB processes, and that has to be done before the summer part even starts. So you essentially you kind of get started right away with some of this stuff. So whether or not that makes sense or whether or not it's appropriate for your project or your mentor, and you two will figure that out. There might be some brief write-up that's due, but essentially by mid-April, you will at least formally sign the contract, that commits you to SRP, saying that yes, I'm all in. And again, we are not going to be happy if you say yes, I'm all in, but then you get into something else and then you say, well, actually, I'm not all in. Bye. Because again, this is a competitive program, and we want to make sure that we are giving it to people who really are invested. So it doesn't mean you can't apply to other things, but if we're at the point where you have a contract in your hand, that's really the point where you have to make a choice. So again, hasn't been an issue. I hope it never is. So then the last bullet point is some students may have to start working right away. And again, it should not be that it's a full-time job right away. But the psych faculty are amazing, and they know kind of how to structure it and scaffold it out so that you can get all of this done before SRP starts without it being a complete burden. And then, after finals and commencement, then SRP starts. So I think this is the last slide before I open up for questions. So again, and you'll get a better sense of what this looks like when you can actually see the application. But a competitive and complete application for the SRP program includes the application form, which has I think 4 or 5 prompts that ask about like why SRP, asks you to share academic and personal preparedness, because we do not look at GPA. Again, we do not look at GPA, but we do want to make sure that you are prepared. That if you're going to work with a chem faculty member, you probably should have taken the intros and the orgos before launching into the summer project. And the faculty usually on their blurbs that you'll be able to peruse, they usually will state kind of what classes they would consider prerequisites to work with them. So that will give you a good sense as well. So and then you can talk about that in your application. So being able to talk about your academic and personal preference is different than just looking at your grades. Because again, and I'll say this in general, for other application processes you do in your life, don't think that if you got, a C in a class, then that's game over for everything. Because if anything, if you got a C, I'll just stick with Orgo because it's on my mind. If you got first semester Orgo got a C, and then second semester Orgo turned that into a B plus, that's a powerful narrative. If you can talk about kind of what you did in terms of your preparation and your kind of study skills and your kind of approaches of how you tackled the course to address your learning and ultimately succeed and do better. I'd rather read that than I just got straight A's. Then I don't know if they're actually being challenged or not. Anyway, so then so along with this application form, which are some demographic stuff in some very one-page essays, you also will submit one of the following. If you intend to kind of propose your own project, and again, I strongly encourage you to kind of figure out which faculty make the most sense to mentor you if it's your own project. You will submit a description of the project that you're proposing. And your potential faculty mentors can likely help you a little bit with that too. So this is to help us see that you've kind of thought through the project, or through discussions with the mentor, that you've kind of crafted it into something that makes sense to do over a 10-week period. Yeah, if you want a sample size of 10,000, we're going to be a little hesitant that you're going to be able to do that over a 10-week period here at SMC. So we just want to make sure that your project is something that is reasonable and makes sense. You don't have to submit your own project. Most students don't. Again, that's kind of very, very common in psych and essentially nowhere else. So what I imagine a lot of you will be doing is you'll look through all the faculty projects that are going on, and there will be some that really jump out at you, some that seem interesting. And so we'll ask for some sort of ranked list of 3 to 5 of the projects. And then when you get those preliminary acceptances, which will have possible mentor pairings, that your ranked list is what I take into account. So I will try to make sure you are matched with kind of your top choices. But if by listing multiple options, or that also gives me some flexibility and might actually mean that it makes it more likely you'll get in. If we're kind of up against, there's too many students per too few faculty members in a particular department, for example. So it'll be one of 2 of those, and then one letter of rec, which will be due the same day of the application. Again, ideally done by a school science faculty member or a science faculty member from a different school if you're a transfer student. And then if you don't think it will be either of those, again, don't hesitate to stop by my office or reach out to me via email. I can give you some on the spot kind of assessment of what I think in terms of what you're thinking in terms of the application or the letter of rec, and whether or not I think that that's going to make your form as competitive as it can be. Because again, I don't decide any of the who gets in, who doesn't get in. So I'm free to give my opinions, as much as I want. And then I believe that is it. So again, what I'll do now is I will stop the recording, and then people can ask questions if things come up. And see.